Before we begin, I quickly want to mention that you only have a couple days left before we end our green screen meme competition. We will stream the results live on the 23rd. More info on our Discord. Previously. So, I am going to say, the next video is going to be about Vladimir. But I am aware that something horrible is going to happen and I am probably going to make a video about Gragas. So, that aged really well. I'm not one that would believe in Christmas miracles, but I have to say there couldn't be a better time to give us some canon Gragas lore. Now, usually when a champion gets a new story, especially if it's an older champion, we go through their bio first. But Gragas just happens to be so old that this process won't take long. In fact, this is all he got. Essentially, Gragas is a big man who likes cracking kegs as much as cracking heads. He has an eternal love for good drink, but because he is so massive, it is hard for him to get drunk. And so, one night, after emptying all of his kegs, he thought, why couldn't he brew something that would finally get him drunk? The ultimate ale. And that's how Gragas' quest began. And here is the actual interesting part of his story. The bio mentioned that he eventually stumbled into the Freljord, where he found the Great Holding Abyss. Which means that he likely does not come from the Freljord. And he may be big because he is a cross between humans and some other bigger species. Although he has to be related to the Iceborn somehow. Because in the Holding Abyss, he found a never-melting shard of true ice, which managed to keep Gragas' ale in perfect serving temperature. After that, Gragas decided to test his new ale in a meeting where a tribe was discussing their alliance with Ash, and after a brawl, the two tribes became allies, as fate would have it, because Gragas' brew was so good. That's how his bio ends. It's not the most complex story, but that's because Gragas' bio is quite old, and that's why he was a meme. So now, let's have a look at the new story he got, which actually turns him into a real, believable character. Up in the mountains that separate Demacia from the Freljord, there aren't a lot of jobs that pay coin. Some pay in furs or in loaves of frost-hard bread. But Agel's baby sister was born sickly. The family needed coin to keep her well fed and to buy her medicine. So Agel's father cut a deal with Agel's uncle, Jesper. Agel would become a servant in Jesper's inn at the mountain pass selling ale to passing traders. One night, a season after Agel started working for Jesper, a whole crowd of customers arrived just as the inn was closing. It was strange for travelers to arrive so late after nightfall in the winter. Jesper peered out the window. "I don't know them," he said, tugging nervously on his wild black beard. The door slammed open and a crowd of shaggy-haired men thumped inside, shaking the snow from their boots and cloaks. They parted ranks, and an old fellow with a velvet-trimmed cloak approached the bar. "Good evening," he said with a great city accent. "Our business associate is arriving in a few minutes. What's on offer?" Uncle Jesper pointed numbly at the drink list behind the bar. There were 12 brews there, an impressive selection for this part of the Demacian hinterlands. But one by one, the guards all ordered the absolute cheapest, 4 Sins Red. Agel had never tasted any other beer, but even he knew it wasn't good stuff. That's why it was so cheap. Agel hurried to the back room, where the kegs were kept to pour their ale. As the skunky beverage foamed into the cups, he wondered how much these guests would tip. Would he get one big tip from the leader, or 11 small tips, one from each? His heart raced. Then Agel heard a heavy step on the path outside. The door creaked open, and the next step made the tavern floorboards groan. Agel wheeled the drink cart out into the main room. The newcomer was the absolute biggest man he had ever seen. His head scraped the ceiling beams, his limbs were pure muscle, as thick as tree trunks, and his face was covered in bristly red beard. The grisly scars crisscrossing his vast sides looked like he really lived through the gruesome battles Jesper's drunken patrons like to brag about. The velvet-clad man raised his hand toward the stranger. "Gragas, I presume?" he called. Gragas didn't answer. His eyes were fixated on the drinks list hanging behind the bar. "You are Gragas, the brewer?" The merchant replied impatiently. Gragas turned his huge shoulders and gave the little old man a red-faced glare. With a voice so loud it reminded Angel of an old god speaking from below the snowpack, the newcomer growled, "I'm buying a drink." The air in the room felt like it does when a thunderstorm gathers overhead. Angel began hanging out the ales. His hands were shaking. "What's that Karsten flower stuff?" Gragas asked Jesper, pointing at the list. "What flower's that?" "That's just the brewer's name," Jesper said. "It ain't got flowers in it, sorry." Gragas rumbled. Angel handed out the final drink to the old merchant, then stood patiently, waiting for his tip. But the merchant ignored him. His glinting gaze was fixed on the huge newcomer, like a fox's eyes before the pounce. "I'll take the Sun Gold Porter," Gragas announced. "That's a precious one, I've heard." Jesper scurried into the back to pour it, and Gragas thumped over the table to sit down. "Now, what do y'all have for me?" he asked. The old merchant started digging around his huge coat. "I heard you're in the market for Shuriman goods," he said. "Floodplain grains, cactus blooms." "I'm interested," Gragas said. The merchant noticed Angel standing there. "Shoo, boy," he said. Angel froze. "No tip?" "I said shoo," the merchant snapped. All the guards laughed. Tears starting at the corners of his eyes. Angel hurried into the keg room behind the bar. Jesper was pacing back there, tugging nervously at his beard. "Damn that man," Jesper seethed. "The Sun Gold Porter? I don't have any." "We ran out?" "We never had it. I can't afford to stock any of those rare ales. They are on offer to impress people. Almost nobody orders them. They are too expensive. And when they do, I mix some stuff together. Nobody can tell." To Angel, this seemed like stealing. "You should tell the big man," he said. Jesper laughed. "Why? It doesn't hurt anyone. I have a business to run, boy. One glass of the porter is a week of earning here at the inn." Jesper squared his shoulders. "He won't be able to tell." Jesper snatched a massive stain of one of the hooks on the wall and started filling it at the Frossin step. Then Aegon Ale. Then Karsten flower. As that murky mixture foamed toward the brim, Angel realized he had to deliver Gragas that concocted drink. Cold washed over him like a night wind over the snow. When Jesper thunked the stain into his outstretched hands, he almost fell over. "Keep a straight face," Jesper ordered. Angel thought of his sister. He thought of money clinging in his palm. Then he tottered forward, across the empty floor of the inn, struggling to hold the stain aloft. Gragas's booming voice filled the room. "The recipe I'm working on has a very spicy taste already. I need something to balance it out." As Angel approached the table, the merchant leaned forward. "So, we arrive at the real business." "Yeah," Gragas grunted. "The real business." The merchant reached inside his coat and drew out a palm-sized lockbox covered in gold and glinting jewels. The shining box was absolutely the most valuable thing Angel had ever seen in his life. It was probably worth 10 lifetimes of Jesper's smelly ale. Standing near it felt like standing beside the sun. "Azir's tears," the merchant said. "Ancient heirloom spice, ground from tomb herbs found only in the ruins of the Sun Disk. The Sun Emperors used it to season their mead." "Really?" Gragas said. "When I heard about your quest, the greatest ale ever brewed, well, I immediately sought out the tears. The trades I had to make. The spice is worth a fortune, but I knew it would be good for it." Gragas nodded slowly, thinking. Angel suddenly realized that if anyone was going to be able to notice a substitute drink, it would be a master brewer on a quest to make the perfect beer. He reached for the stain, thinking frantically for an excuse, but he was too slow. Gragas noticed Angel and the beer sitting at his elbow. "Thanks, boy," he said and grabbed the stain himself. He drank deep, and immediately, Angel saw his brushy eyebrows frown. His nostrils twitched. His bearded lip curled into a hint of a grimace. His gaze traveled across the room and fixed on Jesper. Angel felt like he was going to melt. He knows we are tricking him. But the master brewer did not shout out of displeasure. Instead, Gragas held his hand out for the jeweled box. "So, let me see," he said. "Show me your perfect spices." The merchant handed it over. Gragas lifted the lid of the logbox and sniffed, and again his nostril twitched. That sensitive sense of smell had found another flavor that troubled it. Agel felt his heart stop. They are tricking him too. It's a fake. 1 forgery was forgivable. 2? Over the same pint? Not as much. Gragas glanced at Agel just for a moment. It was warning enough. Agel dove away from the table like a snow hare leaping for safety of a tree line. Then Gragas stood. He flipped the table as he rose, and simultaneously, each one of the guards produced jagged hatchets from beneath their cloaks. Gragas just took out his fists. Agel saw only bits of the ensuing fight. He saw the merchant flee toward the bar. Then Gragas followed with huge strides. There was a sound like an explosion. Jasper gave a high-pitched scream and skittered straight out of the front door. Then the kegs all rolled across the floor toward the guards, a thundering avalanche spraying ale and foam in every direction. It flattened them. All but one, who hid behind the table, then popped up, ready to throw his axe. But Gragas grunted. A barrel flew across the room, and the guard simply vanished. So did half of the back wall. Agel heard the guard's tiny scream disappear down the mountainside. Agel crawled out from under a table to see Gragas pouring the grey, dusty contents of the shiny logbox onto the groaning merchant at his feet. "Mummy dust," he growled. "Have some respect." Then he caught sight of Agel. His wild brows narrowed. "Boy," his booming voice made shards of broken glass tremble on the floor. "Come here." Cautiously, Agel approached. He thought of his sister. He wondered whether he could run faster than a thrown barrel. "Tell the innkeep to go lighter on the forsyths next time," Gragas said. Then Agel saw the logbox in the master brewer's outstretched hand. A huge smile parted the bushy red beard. "Your tip." And that was the story that finally gave Gragas some depth. At least a little bit. His bio is still very much old, and he should get some polish there. But at least now we know where Gragas is and what he is really doing. He is traveling around the borders of Freljord, gathering different spices and materials to make the best ale. It is not the most complicated story, but hey, I'll take anything canon when it comes to Gragas. The sad thing is that now a meme has died. But don't worry, there are others. For example, I know that Yordles are trying not to look like Yordles and they are actually trying to look like humans. But on top of not having any lore, how can Corky hide a tiny helicopter in Piltover?